Okay, yesterday we started learning the dinim about hitting somebody, or you're a Rashi even if you didn't hit him yet. If you're about to hit him, you're a Rashi. If you hit him, you're actually transgressing a negative commandment in the Torah. If you do hit somebody, Bais Din excommunicates you, you can't be counted for a minion and all that. So the later poskim write, by the way, that nowadays when things are out of hand, if you're going to make such a din, you won't be able to be with anybody in a shul, you won't have a minion anywhere. So today they don't, in fact there's a whole story, the Chassam Sefer, they asked, the Tshuva brings down, the Chassam Sefer was asked about a guy that was excommunicated and he was a chazan, if they should answer Amen after his Kaddish and Shmoneh, whatever. So he said, nowadays there's going to be a joke, if you don't answer, it's going to, because people are corrupt anyway. Okay, now you're not allowed to hit even a worker that works for you, like a masharis, a servant, housekeeper in the house. You're not allowed to hit. You're allowed to hit, not nowadays, but halachically you're allowed to hit little kids, your own little kids, to train them at how to be a nice Jewish boy or girl. In fact, even years ago there was a tradition, a big mitzvah. They used to raise, there was a lot of orphans in those days, because people were dying very young. So people would raise orphans in their house. They didn't adopt them. They knew they weren't their kids, but they raised orphans. So the same thing, even though the Torah warns, you have to be very careful when it comes to widows and orphans, about treating them nicer than everybody else. In the Gemara and Rambam it says even a widow of a king, you still have to treat, they're still sensitive. She has a lot of power and money and everything, but they're still very sensitive. So even such a child, halachically, you would be allowed to hit if the purpose is to raise them in a proper way. But again, today don't do it because you'll end up in jail. Now, you might end up in jail, let's put it that way. Okay, now, there's also a din, you're not allowed to do anything that would damage anybody. Financially, emotionally, whatever it is. So for instance, what happens if you have garbage, or the case in Shechina, you have broken glass? So you're not allowed to throw it out in the street, because people will walk on it, they'll get hurt, or they'll trip, or they'll cut themselves. So you're not allowed to put it in a place where people go. You have to put it in a place. If you want to throw out dirty water, you shouldn't throw it from your dorm window into the street, because people might walk underneath it, especially if it's Negelwasser water. In my yeshiva days, don't listen to this. My yeshiva days, the bachim in our dorm, we are in the 3rd and 4th floor of the building in Bedford. Getting to Bedford. So the guys were too lazy to empty out the Negelwasser in the bathroom. They would just open the window, throw it out. They didn't care who it landed on down in the street, which wasn't nice at all, by the way. Okay, next is like this. What happens if you have a neighbor that has head problems and noise gives him headaches? So the din is, and if you bang on things, it's going to damage the person, it's going to make him sick or whatever. So you're not allowed to do those things unless halacha says like this. If you have, let's say, you're teaching kids, again, they didn't have an official school. People taught kids in their houses. They would have a little school, So then that noise already, because it's a mitzvah, that doesn't matter if the person will get sick from it or not. You have to be considerate. But otherwise, and not only that, what happens if you always were banging for years and the person never got headaches from it? Then later on, he started getting headaches from it. So you can't say, I have a chazak of doing it. I have an established pattern already that I was doing it for years, so therefore I'm allowed to continue. Allah says no, if it's going to damage somebody, a chazaka will not necessarily help the person that he would be allowed to continue doing it. Even if he got sick, okay, but a mitzvah, we said that's not. Well, let's say, I'll give another example. You're building a sukkah, and you're building with a hammer and nails, right? You're building a sukkah. They didn't have the prefabs in those days. They used to build them, the real sukkahs. So now, the guy is screaming next door, you're making me sick, I'm getting a headache from your... So halacha says that because you're doing a mitzvah, so then it doesn't matter if the guy's getting sick. You're allowed to do it anyway. Huh? According to halacha, by the way, it's any time.
Is it shul?
Yeah. I mean, this happens to be not actual shchunah, the smell, but whatever. Yeah, when the code of fives. Huh?
And like the city, if the city says it can build.
Then if the city says you can build until 6 o'clock, so then afterwards you can, because then number one, you're talking with Chil Hashem, because look at the Jews don't listen to the laws, which they don't do anyway. So then it's a Chil Hashem and you're not allowed to. I remember the first year we were building a sukkah when we moved. Sal Lowy over the Shalom was helping Mendel build the sukkah. In Beverly Hills, you're allowed to build until 6 o'clock. 6:01, he was still building it. 6:01, the cops came to my door. Remember? 6:01, the police came to my door and they said, it's after 6 o'clock, you're not allowed to do any construction.
It's wrong. You're only not allowed to do commercial construction, like real construction. You're allowed to build a city.
Okay, but the police came. Now you know. Now you finally learned the laws. But the cop stopped us. He said, sorry, we can't continue.
They probably were sitting outside the door until it's 6:01.
No, because somebody already, the neighbor, we know which neighbor it was. The neighbor, they're not there anymore, huh?
The neighbor.
Must have been Jewish.
Of course. Huh? That one wasn't. Usually it's the Jews that complain. Yeah. Okay, next. You're not allowed to do anything, even in your own domain, if it's going to cause danger to the people in the street. Let's see if he gives an example. No, you can't. It doesn't give examples. But you can't do anything even in your own property if it's going to, let's say, you're going to bang in your property, it's going to weaken a wall in the street, let's say, or weaken something in the street. Anything that's going to be hurt, damaging somebody else, we're talking about property, we're not talking about even health. You're not allowed to do it, you have to stop doing it. But if the custom is in the city that everybody could do it, the city allows it to happen, then you're allowed to do it, because the guy can't say, I don't want you to do it, because the assumption is the city allows it, so everybody was meichel, everybody gave permission to do it. Huh? What? No, okay.
So you can build it in the middle of UCLA as long as you put up a Palestinian flag.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, next.
Yesterday, not anymore. Not anymore. Wait. Not as of.
Okay, now what happens? So Gemara not crazy. Gemara says many things that potter medine adam v'chai b'dinei shemayim, meaning the courts can't obligate you, but between you and God, you better take care of the debt, so to speak. So one of the things the Gemara says that he brings down over here is if you scare somebody, either from behind them, all of a sudden you come behind and scare him, and years ago it used to make a person deaf. So even though you didn't make him deaf actively, it was only what was called grama, indirect damages, nevertheless, court, the Bais Din can't make you pay, because grama ben azakin, if it's indirect damages, it's potter. But Bais Din, bedinei shemayim, means if you want to free yourself from the heavenly court, you have to pay the damages. And there's many, many, many dinim like that.
And what if you did in a way that he's for sure going to become deaf?
That's maybe garmi, depends which rishon you hold with garmi, if barei hazek or not. But garmi, according to most opinions, which the definition, if it's for sure going to happen, then it's garmi, it's not gram, and you probably would be chayiv. There would be chayiv mistama, according to most poskim at least. Okay, now, what happens if you damage somebody, you break his window or whatever you do, and you pay him up? You pay back the debt, or you steal something from somebody and you give it back. You're still not totally forgiven until you ask him forgiveness. You have to still ask him forgiveness. Now, and but you paid him for the damages. Why do you have to ask him forgiveness? So Shulchan Aruch says because you caused him pain. I mean, you caused him aggravation, so you have to ask him mechila. The person that you did it to should not be an achzori. He shouldn't be a mean person. He should forgive right away. And as we learned many times, we're learning this in the Gersa Tshuva, that we always ask Hashem for forgiveness. So Hashem works deed for deed. So when we forgive right away, then Hashem forgives us right away. If we don't forgive right away, Hashem says, why should I forgive you right away if you don't forgive somebody else right away? Or but the Gemara, the Alter Rebbe in the Gersa Tshuva brings down the Gemara in Bava Kama, it says, even akotei yad chaverei, even God forbid somebody chops off your hand, you're supposed to forgive him. You're supposed to forgive the person and ask mechila. But that's the halacha that you have to do.
How about the goy? You were supposed to tell the goy the same thing? Mehila?
You're supposed to ask forgiveness from the goy. In a certain respect, the guy is worse because then you deal with Chilul Hashem. It's the desecration of Hashem's name. They say, oh, look what the Jews do. I was once I was a kinnis Torah somewhere. It wasn't the Lubavitch kinnis Torah. And one rabbi got up and he was speaking about the way yeshiva people do all the Chilul Hashems. And he was talking all the numerous things. He says, like you're going in the street and all of a sudden you cut somebody off. You know, go to the red light and you go to the other line, you cut him off. He said, you know, that's a Chilul Hashem. He was calling all the things that everybody does. All the religious Jews do that are all Chilul Hashems. But a guy, you have to be more careful because it's Chilul Hashem. Or, by the way, the same din of Chilul Hashem applies to a Jew who's not religious yet. Because he's also says, oh, look what the religious people do. So then it's also an issue of Chilul Hashem. It's not Chilul Hashem is not only for a guy. Chilul Hashem could be for another Jew also. The Gemara says, the Rabbi used to quote this Gemara often, that the Rabbi Yehuda of Rabbi Yecheskel, the famous Rabbi Yehuda of the Gemara, would say, if I would take meat and credit, he was the Rav of the city. So if I would take meat and credit, when the butcher never gave anybody else credit, but he gave me, it's a Chilul Hashem. Why? Because people don't know that he's giving me. He doesn't give credit to anybody. It's okay, so I'm the rabbi of the city, so he's giving me credit. But people don't know that. They're going to see me just taking meat. He says that, even though I'm not stealing it, I'm going to pay the guy. He's just giving it to me now on credit. It's a Chilul Hashem. So people have to be careful with Chilul Hashem. From all the categories of tshuva, by the way, the fourth category, the Alter Rebbe doesn't even talk about in the Gersa Tshuva, he doesn't quote this, is a person does a Chilul Hashem, so then tshuva is not enough, and Yom Kippur is not enough, and punishment's not enough. The only thing that forgives Chilul Hashem is death. That's what the Gemara says in Yuma. The only thing that helps for Chilul Hashem, that, in other words, you did tshuva, you asked forgiveness, you did tshuva, you went through Yom Kippur, you went through punishment, it's still not forgiven. Okay, some poskim write an interesting thing, that what's the forgiveness? The fact that you had to go and embarrass yourself to go ask forgiveness. I mentioned a story that happened, I think it was Tafshin Chav Ches, if I'm not mistaken. There was a big rabbinic convention, we'll name it nameless, and one big rabbi got up and he said, it was Pashtus Tildes, where it says that Yitzchak liked Esav kitzayid befiv, because he gave him food. So a big Rosh Yeshiva at that convention got up and he said the following, that Chabad is like Yitzchak. You see, Chabad is like Yitzchak. Why? Yitzchak loved Esav because he gave him food. Chabad likes the non-religious Jews because they give him money. He was knocking Chabad, and that's what he said at this convention with 1,000 people in the crowd. So the Rebbe heard about it the next Shabbos. There was a Fabrengen, and the Rebbe said, number one, thank you for likening Chabad with Yitzchak Avinu. That's a pretty big compliment. Chabad is like Yitzchak Avinu. I mean, come on, it's a pretty big compliment. And then the Rebbe didn't stand up for Chabad. Our honor, the Rebbe said that this person, this Rosh Yeshiva, has to go to Maras Machpelah, and he has to have Yitzchak Avinu Mechila. How does he say such a ridiculous statement that Yitzchak loved Esav because he gave him food? He said the real definition of that is what Arizal says, to say Yitzchak Avinu right, liked Esav because he gave him food. I mean, that's ridiculous. So the real explanation we learned many times, Arizal says, because there are many Gadim, many converts that came out of Esav, that the entire Torah is based on their teachings. Rabbi Akiva came from Gadim. Shmai and Naphtali, the teachers of Hillel and Shammai, were Gadim. Rabbi Meir was a descendant of Gadim. I mean, and the whole oral Torah is based on the teachings of Rabbi Akiva and the other Gadim. So what the Arizal says, Ki tzayid befiv, Yitzchok foresaw the sparks of Kedusha that are going to be in the mouth, in the Torah of Esav's descendants, and that's the real definition. But to say that Yitzchok loved Esav because he gave him food is a chutzpah. And therefore he has to go to Marsa Machpelah to ask Yitzchok Avinu Mechila. So they asked the Rebbe during the week, the din is not like that. The din is you can gather the same amount of people and ask Mechila that way. So the following week, I remember it was a Bachadam, I remember the Verbringen. Then those things I remembered. And the Rebbe said, to quote a Shulte Gebein, was a lot of things the Rebbe was talking and learning. And then the Rebbe said there are two options. Either go to the grave, if the person passed away already, go to the grave and ask Mechila. Or the second option is, you have to gather the same amount of people and get up and ask Mechila publicly.
Same amount or the same?
Same people.
Same people.
Same people. I said amount. Same people, because you're embarrassed to, so you have to ask a mechila in front of those people. The Rebbe said, for this guy to gather that same crowd again and get up and say, I'm an idiot, I embarrassed Yitzchak Avinu, the Rebbe said, Pasha was kind to him, had Rahmanas on him. I told him it's easier, go to Marsa Machpelah, take a plane, go to Marsa Machpelah, ask mechila, and you'll be the easier of the evils. So there is this I don't know if he did it.